That's an eternity of basketball ahead of us. Another beautiful steal perpetrated by Todd White. The action continues. The let's go situation here. Alexei Deacon going up against a double team. Jeffrey Moore has perfect access to the bucket. What you saw from that normal replay of that last bit of action was Juan Fernandez actually wanting to dish up the against Master Jaworski. We're crossing the twilight zone. That's an eternity of basketball ahead of us.
Good morning from the Philippines and welcome to episode 73 of An Eternity of Basketball. But before we begin, of course, we do have other shows that we want to talk about here on the Globally Ballin Network, including Who the Heck Are We? And episode 39 of their show will feature Dylan Ababu, former UST and Gilas player, also a former PBA journeyman. And you can also watch, or you can also listen to that on Spotify. And speaking of watching another show, you have episode 26 of Hang Time with Denise Dinsay, who will be talking to former National University volleyball great Kai Nepomuceno Balawaloa. And also, you can check out the Globally Ballin Network at globallyballin.com. All of the shows that we have there, so many things that you can check out from the globallyballin.network.com. Of course, you must subscribe to our YouTube channel because starting tomorrow, at March 21, episodes 1 to 50 of An Eternity of Basketball will only be on the Globally Ballin YouTube channel. And you can also take us on the go. Eternity of Basketball is available on Spotify. Listen to the show anytime you want. Just keep us in the background so you can keep up with the past in Philippine basketball. And of course, Linktree/Globally Ballin, that is where you go to get all of the links to where you need to be on the Globally Ballin Network. With that being said, we have a special show today, the most loaded show we've ever had. This is a tribute to somebody that we like to call Smoking Joe. My name is Noel Zarate. Kasama po natin ngayon si my usual partners, Charlie Cuna and Sid Ventura. And today is going to mark the in-between, birth anniversary of Joe Cantada, and of course the death anniversary of Joe Cantada. We'll get to that in just a bit, but first I'd like to bring in our esteemed panel of guests, the most number of guests we've ever had in this show's history. We'd like to start out, of course, with PBA Commissioner Willie Marcial. He actually started in Vintage in 1984, so naabutan pa niya yung talagang the rise of Joe Cantada. And of course, that's one of the things that catapulted Commissioner Willie to, masasabi natin, his status ngayon. Willie, bati ka muna sa ating mga fans.
Magandang umaga po sa inyo. Ako po ay paningit lang po dito. Hindi naman talaga ako kasama eh. Nirekomenda ko sarili ko dahil po kay Joe Cantada na tinawagan po ako ni Andy Howe. So, paningit lang po ako dito. So, magandang... At first time ko po dito. Kung hindi pa ako nag-representa, hindi po ako makakarating sa show na to. Ang hirap po makarating sa show na to. Magandang umaga po.
Kailangan matanda ka na para sa show na to. Dahil guest namin, 70s pa eh.
Nga pala, sorry. Nga pala, matatanda nga pala yung mga nandito. So, kaya matagal pa ako dito.
Of course, joining us also for the first time, it's an honor to have our three esteemed panelists from the Philippine Basketball Association TV coverage. Let's start off with the Dean, Quinito Henson. And Dean, I'm sure you have a lot of stories to share about Smoking Joe, but firstly, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Noel, sa invitation. Hi guys, Commissioner Willie, Dr. J, Sev, Sid, Charlie, Noel. Hi to everyone. This is my first time on the show at sabi nga ni Commissioner Willie kanina, mahirap makakuha ng imbitasyon sa show na to. Ako nga, 3 taon na, hinihintay ko yung invitation sa show. 1 year old lang pala ito show. Pero matagal-tagal na din yung naghihintay ako. Pero finally, nandito na. Kanya maraming salamat, Noel, Sid, at saka Charlie, for this invitation.
Thank you very much, Dean. And of course, Dr. J. Andy House probably partnered with Joe Cantada the most among anybody here. Good morning, Doc.
Yeah, good morning, Noel, Charlie, Sid. Maraming salamat dito sa imbitasyon na ito. And obviously, hard for me to say no to my kumpare, the guy that I started with in Vintage Enterprises for the coverage of the PBA. So obviously, something that a good remembrance for him dahil I saw March ang birthday niyan, March 15, no?
Right.
And I would like to start it off by saying, because I invited them to watch, Good Morning Maribel, yung asawa ni Joe, and Good Morning Porky. And if you remember him, those people that know him in the past, he will always start a coverage with greeting his son, Porky, who's a big man now with 2 children already.
Wow, okay.
Wow, yeah, that's great to know. And of course, last but not least, the guy who can probably mimic Joe Cantada the best sa aming lahat dito, itong si Sev Sarmenta. Thank you for accepting our invitation, Sev. Si Sev medyo hesitant pa kasi pang pang basketball stars daw itong show na to. Pero syempre, you guys are basketball stars in your own right. Good morning, Sev Sarmenta.
Pero okay naman yung niche ng AEOB kasi you talk to our heroes in the past. Pwera kayong tatlong host dito. I am again a rookie. I was very young, 30-year-old in 1986 when I joined these guys in the Vintage panel, and I'm sure they have more stories. And ang naabutan ko yung dulo na lang, so I'll catch up to sa dulo. But it's a great show, and congratulations. I look forward to a joyful morning. And Willie Marcial, huwag kang mag-alala, hindi ka mabibisto rito sa mananatili ang respeto ng mga ng mga governors ng PBA ay mananatili pagkatapos ng show na ito. Wala kang problema dito.
Tama-tama, umpisahan na rin natin dito kay Com Willie. Willie Marcial started out actually, yun ang kasama sa trivia pag Christmas party ng PBA. Kailan nagsimula si Willie Marcial sa Vintage? And the answer, Com, 1984, tama ba?
1984, grade 2 ako, grade 2.
Pareho pala tayo, Kom. Tama.
Naalala kasi natin nag-transition yung PBA, of course, from the old Channel 4 coverage nila Dick Ildefonso and MB Arcilla. And then in 1981, actually na-award yung rights to Vintage Enterprises headed by Bobong Velez. And then they started getting new broadcasters para magbago yung landscape ng broadcasting. And all of a sudden, they got this boxing announcer, itong si Joe Cantada, to spruce things up. And not only did Joe Cantada spruce things up, he changed the language of broadcasting in the Philippines forever. Pero kung Willie, tanong ko muna sa'yo, anong una mong memory kay Smoking Joe noong una mong araw sa Vintage?
Pag nagkakamali siya. Kasi, ako, panel scorer ako, pare. So, tinuturo ko ang nakashoot si Gidabin. Makikita niya si atoy ko. Ituturo ko si Gidabin. Sisisihin ako. Mali daw yung sulat ko, mali daw yung pagkakaano ko. Yun na, doon nagsimula na yung Willie Marcial sa PBA. Lahat ng kamalian niya sa akin binubunton. Pero okay lang.
At sinasabi pa niya on the air yun, di ba? Kasalanan ni Willie Marcial.
Kasalanan niya ni Willie Marcial.
Official shoe of the PBA, Willie Marcial pa rin eh. Yun ang sinasabi ni Joe Cantada.
Well, of course, alam naman natin, the guy, and I said this earlier, the guy who probably partnered with Joe the most dito sa ating lahat is Dr. J. You were coming off, you started out your broadcasting career. Joe Cantada kaagad ang kasama mo, Doc. So what was that like for you?
Well, first of all, the broadcasting itself was not easy because I have no experience at all, no? Plus the fact that it was the first time, and you're on national TV with a product that's being followed by a lot of fans, no? Especially during that time, 1982 yun nung nag-umpisa yun And Quinito could have been with us, but he wanted to lay off first, and he was an advisor for the whole project. So in all our meetings prior to going to the venue itself for the first time, Quinito was always there with us. Now, it was not a very easy thing to do. But, pare, I'll tell you something about Joe. Napakabait na tao niyan, and a very loyal friend, pagkaibigan ka niya. Alam ni Willie yan pagkaaway ka niya, tapos ka na. And he really loved Willie a lot. This is not a joke. Willie knows that. He may joke about Joe forever, but he really loves Willie a lot. Kaya nga, inadvertise niya yan because he felt that even people on the smaller side of the coverage should always be given the proper credit. And Willie really knew the game. Willie loved basketball a lot. That's why he pinagtiyagaan niya magtrabaho ng ganun muna. But he really loved the game a lot. And Joe saw that. So Joe continued to always give him respect. Now, for me, it was difficult, but he made it so easy for me. He knows I made mistakes, especially all of you. You work in the beginning, you make a lot of mistakes, especially sometimes my English at the time, although we were playing more on 60-70% English, 30% Tagalog. So it was not easy for me to go all straight English all the way. So, but we make mistakes. He makes mistakes, but he knows when I correct him, I do it very subtly. Hindi ko siya sinasaktan. Because he has a lot of pride, and he always accepts that the same way that I accept it from him.
Well, of course, and you said, Doc, na si Quinito could have been on the panel but chose to be an advisor. When we do our workshops, our broadcasting workshops, Quinito, you always have this certain one anecdote about Joe Cantada na muntik ka nang sapakin one day, challenge you to a boxing. He wanted to hit you already when you were one of the advisors kind of time. Can you tell everybody about that story?
Yun. One of the responsibilities that Mr. Bobong Veles gave me during that time was as a consultant. So, ang sabi nga ni Dr. J kanina, we would have meetings before a coverage, days before the coverage. Tapos, I would come up with an agenda of like basketball vocabulary, new things that I've been able to pick up from the NBA and from different coverages. And I would also critique. Mr. Veles told me that I could do that and that I should be very free with my comments. And since I wasn't part of the panel, ang ginagawa ko noon, pinanunod ko sila, and then I would have my pen and paper and I would note down everything that I felt that they did right and I felt that could be improved. And one time, meron yata ako nasabing hindi maganda about Joe. Maybe something that Joe said that maybe I didn't say it very well, but it was in a manner of correction. So, ma-pride din si Joe, and I think Joe took some offense in the way I mentioned it. And hinabo niya ako mag-square. Tapos sabi ko naman, boxing champion ko ng Ateneo, kilakalaking tao, weightlifter. Matatakot ako dito, sabi ko. First of all, I didn't want to tangle with him physically. Pangalawa, I felt it was not also my place to be in the same platform as Joe in that situation. So pangatlo, sabi ko, I didn't want our meeting to deteriorate into something personal. But something like that happened very quickly, and in the same way that it happened so quickly like a spark, it also disappeared. So, but I will always remember that. But one thing about Joe, ito preparado ako, palagi ako may baon eh. Joe, not too many people know, was a good singer. And I still have his CD. It's called Joe Cantada in 12 rounds. Sealed pa to. Wow. Hindi ko pa nabubuksan ito. Wow. And, I wanted to share this with everyone. Some of the songs he sang in this CD. 1st of May, Green, Green Grass of Home, Both Sides Now, Impossible Dream. So this I cherish. One day, maybe to celebrate his life even better, I'll open this and I listen to it. Mm-hmm. But actually, I've heard him sing in some other guy's CD. But this is something that I treasure. The CD of Joe Cantada. Yeah. And
Joe Cantada would have been 79 years old if he was still around today when he celebrated his birthday in March 15. But it's great that you have that memorabilia there, Quinito.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing that I have of Joe that I treasure is his appearance in the Thrill of Manila. At meron akong DVD to show him as the ring announcer. 1975, the Thrill of Manila was the biggest boxing event, I think, in history. Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali in the Philippines. And I remember the Games and Amusement Board Chairman, Louis Tabuena, wanted to make sure that it had a Filipino flavor. Nandun si President Marcos, nanonood sa Araneta Coliseum, jam-packed. Wala ako dun. In fact, I was working in a bank at that time. And I was watching on TV in the office. But si Joe Cantada this was held in the morning, by the way. No? Joe Cantada was the ring announcer. He wore a Barong Tagalog. Naka-bell-bottom pants pa nga siya, no? And I thought, wow, what a pride for the Philippines. In such a big event like this, a boxing match watched by millions and millions all over the world, the ring announcer was Joe Cantada, and with his booming voice, he did so well. And I felt, he could have been the Michael Buffer if he really wanted to, of not only of the Philippines, but of the world. He was that good as a ring announcer because he introduced Ali, he introduced Joe Frazier. And at that time, he could also have been in the panel broadcasting that event. Pero Flip Wilson, Hugh O'Brien, the actor, Howard Cosell, and Ken Norton were in the panel, the TV panel for that fight. Natandaan ko din, watching this DVD, that after Joe Cantada introduced the two fighters, the championship trophy was by his side on the canvas inside the ring. Kinuha pa naman ni Ali at dinala niya sa kanyang corner. So, it had a funny anecdote to it. Pero in the middle of everything was Joe Cantada. And, that was a feeling of pride for every Filipino. And it was also, I was also awestruck and starstruck when several years later, I got to meet Joe Cantada in the flesh, in person. And I also felt a lot of pride when I worked some games with him.
Yeah. Well, Sid, you have a question before I go to Charlie. Go ahead, Sid.
No, just have a question for Sir Sev. Sir Sev, you were known as a great Joe Cantada impersonator within the vintage panel. No? But when you first, I'm sure word eventually got back to him that you were doing these impersonations of him. What was it like when the two of you first met?
Yan ang magandang istorya. When I auditioned sa Vintage, I first auditioned as myself, Sev Sarmenta. I passed. Then the second half, and there was a guy named Flor Malong before he passed away, who was a director at Vintage, and he said he let Mr. Ricky Velez and Romy Quintanar, the late Romy Quintanar, know that I could do Joe Cantada. So one half of a quarter, Sev Sarmenta, okay na. And then the second quarter, I did it with Joe's voice with Romy Quintanar with me. So Romy Quintanar, the man who looks like a huge armada, and diba? So si Romy tawa ng tawa. So the question of Sid is what happened when I saw him for the first time. Remember, guys, we shifted to the Ultra. We moved upstairs because we wanted Joe a chance to smoke during the game. Diba? Kasi pinagagalitan siya doon sa baba sa inyo nung nasa Araneta kayo eh. Lagi sinasabi, no smoking sir, no smoking. Ito na lang ang bisyo ko, inaasar niyo pa ako. Tapos, when we were testing the Ultra setup to sa taas, our producer back then, si Det Ramos, said, oh, ayan na si Joe, he was going up the stairs sa Ultra, do it. Do it, sabi ko. Gawin mo. And ladies and gentlemen, the non-uncomparable voice of Philippine sportscasting, Joe Cantada, slowly scaling the heights of the stairs of the Ultra, looking for a possibility where he will sit. Then Joe heard it and he was smiling. Ang takot ko, syempre, no? First time for me to meet somebody I had impersonated since elementary grade or high school, no? And he said, "I've heard about you. You have given me the ultimate. You have given me the ultimate compliment. Maraming salamat." And from then on, even to the day that we did his wake, that voice is there. I can call on it.
Yeah.
It's like getting Chot Reyes, diba? Chot, I can do Chot Reyes. I can actually make the two of them talk, diba? But it's a different.
We gotta hear that.
But Joe was always part of my voice box. And he was, tama si Andy, such a great mentor to all of us. And and remember, Willie, pag Thursday, hindi pwedeng umuwi ng gabi, whether dun tayo sa may Ultra or nung Faces later, or wherever, Joe said, walang uuwi. Basta pagkatapos, pinaalam ko na si Dr. J. Kung minsan si Dr. J, pinapaalam pa niya on TV eh. I would like to borrow my kumpare, Dr. J, and we are going somewhere after this coverage. And Mare, ako nang bahala sa kanya. That's see,
Galing.
and my kumare could not do anything anymore at that point. But that's his way of loving all of us.
That's a great story.
Charlie?
Yeah, I have a question for Dr. J, but before I ask it, I'm seeing some questions on the comments box now sa Facebook. They're asking how come Waki Trillo is not here. I want to inform everybody. We tried to invite Waki Trillo, but now Tito Waki, who used to party in Faces and dance and all of that, is very shy nowadays. So ayaw ni Waki Trillo. So we cannot talk about Macho Man and El Guapito kasi ayaw ni El Guapito jumoin sa show natin. So anyway, so that's the reason. So for those asking about Waki Trillo, we tried, okay? No, but for Dr. J, Doc, I wanted to ask, you were there kasi at the start, no? 1982, sa Vintage. What was the process, would you know? No? Were you privy to the process of how Bobong chose the panelists? I mean, were Dick and Emmy not included in the Usapan at that time already? Parang it was a shift to new guys. And how was the selection process? You, Joe, Steve Catan, and all these
Pingoy.
Waki Trillo, Pingoy. How were these people chosen to be part of the Vintage panel?
I'm not really sure. No, the Vintage at that time, there were about 6 or 7 guys who were owners of that with Bobong, like the CEO. No, and Quinito should know a little bit more about that. But I don't know if they offered Dick an opportunity to continue to work. I'm not sure about Emmy, the late Emmy. No,
Yeah.
but eventually they started picking people. And I was late. Kami ni Steve Catan, we were late. The original guys that they chose and auditioned, if I'm not mistaken, was the late June Bernardino at saka si Waki Trillo. But Joe and Pingoy, I think, were some of the guys that were immediately chosen to be parang the anchor man. So eventually, I was late. It was already in January. These guys started preparing in November, December, January na ako and then Steve Catan one of these days out of the blue calls up Bobong and says, "You're looking for an anchor? You're looking for an analyst? I'm the man." Nabigla rin si Bobong. Magaling yata ito, di ba? A New Yorker guy and everything.
Yes, with the accent.
But that was the way. And it was really difficult for us kasi nowadays, if you remember now, you work one game, di ba? Kami, one playing day, you work 2 games.
Right.
And you get paid for 2 games with 1 pay. Yung sweldo namin nun eh.
Alam natin yan. No, alam ni Noel yan sa radyo.
Meron pang 10% discount yun. May withholding tax pa yun. Pero we really love to work the 2 games. Pinagtsatsaga namin. Eventually, nagkaroon na rin yan ng 2 panels yan for 2 games. But in the early days, it was more of one guy working all the way.
Naalala ko lang, Kong Willie, nung nagsimula ka sa PBA, unang araw mo kasama si Joe, bakit parang magkadikit ka agad kayo? What was it about Joe Cantada na nag-gravitate kayo sa isa't isa?
Hindi, ganun si Joe Cantada eh. Biglang kinukulit na ako eh. First day ko pa lang, nangungulit na siya, lahat, pati naging show director ako. Yun, nandun nga si Sev na sasabihin sa akin ng director, commercial. So, commercial ako. Tapos, hindi, stretch. Tapos sasabihin ng director, commercial ulit, commercial. Doon ako nadali ni Joe Cantada. Willie Marcial, ano bang gusto mo? Commercial, stretch, o gusto mo to? Doon lahat. Hindi ko naman kasi kasalanan eh. Indirect, sabi ko, after nung gap, Mr. Joe, si director yun eh, ang kulit eh. Hindi ko naman, tawa naman siya ng tawa. Tapos biglang, minsan, naka-suit kami. Hindi pa uso rubber shoes nun eh. Hindi pa uso. Si Quinito pumasok, naka-rubber shoes. Sabi ni Joe, direct, paki-focus nga doon sa sapatos ni Quinito. Si Quinito hindi alam gagawin, ganun. Yung mga ganun, at pag tama si Seb at si Andy, every Thursday, wala kaming sablay. Iinom kami sa faces. So, no, may kwento ako, sabi sa akin, Willie, sumama ka sa akin. Sakay naman ako sa Pajero niya. Punta kami Mandaluyong, tumigil kami. Nandun si Reka Trinidad. Alaga, alam mo ginawa ni Joe? Tinanggal ang tie, tinanggal yung coat, tinupi yung long sleeves. Uminom kami sa kanto, sa kalye. Si Joe Cantada, si Reka Trinidad at ako. Doon lang kami, sa kanto umiinom kami. Hindi ko na sasabihin sa inyo kung ano iniinom namin. Pero umiinom kami. Andun lang kami sa kanto. Ganon. Minsan sa faces, uwi na kami ni Waki. O sige, uwi na tayo. Sasabihin niya, gusto niyo pumunta ng Baguio? Baguio? Kayo pumunta tayong Baguio? Punta tayong Baguio. Ganon kasaya, ganon kami. Every Thursday, walang sablayon. Talagang lumalabas kami na Joe Cantada.
Nick, pwede magdagdag ng kwento bago kayo pumunta kay Quinito kasi si Quinito susunod niya ilalabas yung album ni Joe. I'm sure yung vinyl. Meron ako nun kasi ginawa natin yung di ba yung tribute kay Elorde at kay Joe dati. Nagpa-boxing tayo, alala mo yan. Well, mabilis na kwento lang. Nakakurbata kami, ako si Waki Trillo. I did the first game, yung Battle for Third Finals noon. Nakakurbata kami ni Joe, si Waki, kami tatlo. Sabi ni Waki, hey pare, after the game, you ride with me, Ganun si Waki. O sige, sasakay kami sa'yo. Yung kotse ni Waki at that time, napakaluma, kakarag-karag. Sumut kami doon sa kanto, doon sa may ultra, pakanan ng Shaw Boulevard, sumut kami sa butas. Bujug! Labas kami, nakakurbata, tinulak namin yung sasakyan. Sabi ni Joe, papatayin kita, Waki, papatayin kita. Pagkatapos nito, pagka ito umanda itong kotse, nakakurbata tayo rito. Mga tao, si Joe, being the popular guy, was waving at everybody. Finally, naitulak namin yung kotse, pero yung pawis namin, tak-tak talaga. So, Joe, tama si Willie. He would be, kahit di ba Willie sa labas ng ultra kasama yung mga press, di ba? Ganun makasama si Joe kahit sino, kahit saan, yayayain ka. Ako naman, alam naman ako, sama sa kanya. So every night, wala kami sablay. For ilan, mga 3 to 4 years, wala kami sablay. Every Thursday, lalabas kami.
What was the drink of choice? Anong drink of choice ni Joe Cantada?
Uminom yun, gin tonic.
Yeah, yan ang ganyan. I even tell you the brand if you want me to tell you the brand.
Sige.
He likes Gordon's.
Gordon.
But he will drink Gilbey's. It's not a problem with it.
Akala ko naman kasi baka Andy Player Special ang gusto niya. Ang galing niya mag-endorse ng Andy Player Special. Akala mo, mapapainom ka talaga Pag si Joe Cantada nag-endorse ng produkto on the air, parang gusto mong bilhin, gusto mong inumin, di ba? Ganun talaga he'll say, di ba? Right after this game, I can enjoy a nice glass of Andy Player Special, di ba? Gaganon siya. So magaling siya mag-endorse ng mga products. I'm sure tuwa yung mga sponsors ng PBA.
Alam mo, dahil sa kanya, naalala ko pa rin kung sino gumagawa ng trophies noon sa PBA. Yung Angel Zamora and Sons.
Angel Zamora and Sons, correct.
Siya yung nagsasabi nung kaya tumatak sa utak ko after 30 plus years. Napakaswabe ng delivery niya.
Pati si RM Manlapat, dumami tuloy kliyente kasi kakabati niya sa mga Manlapat.
And tuwing awarding ceremony, sasabihin ni Joe yan and this masterfully crafted trophy from Angel Zamora, di ba? Yan ang line, yan ang catchphrase ni Joe at that time.
At alam ba niyo kung sino may-ari ng Angel Zamora? Si Commissioner Sani Barrios.
Yung
nila yun.
Di ba?
Pero before pa si Sani na sa PBA, yun ang gunagawa. So, walang yun.
Wala.
At saka mabilis gumawa ang Angel Zamora. Saka may nameplate doon. May nameplate yun. Kung sino yung mananalo, kung game 7 yun, 2 nameplate yan. Kung Shell o Ginebra, papalitan mo yun. Kung sino yung MVP of the finals, nakastambay na yung 2 pangalan.
Hanggang ngayon, ginagamit pa rin natin sila. Hanggang ngayon, yun, may plate talaga, sinasabi mo.
Okay.
Magaling So, yun ang ginagamit natin hanggang ngayon.
May mga bumabati sa inyo watching us right now. Bernie Fabiosa, Rino Salazar, Ricky Relosa, they're watching the show right now. Kayo daw mga idol nila. Miss na raw nila kayo. So, nanonood yung mga yan. I'm sure there will be some others later. I have a question for Quinito. Guys, okay lang ha? I'll ask Quinito. Kasi, Dean, you were saying that you were one of the guys tasked to critique, no, the panelists at that time. We all know, and everybody knew it. Ang galing ng boses ni Joe, the wit and the humor was there. But he'd make a lot of basketball mistakes because basketball wasn't his sport.
Yes.
He'd say there was a clear foul, he'd say it was traveling. You know, he'd make mistakes like that. Were those some of the things that you were saying about him? Did you bring that up with management that Joe was making all these mistakes, and is that one of the reasons why he wanted to square with you?
Actually, hindi ko na din matandaan kung ano yung mga nasabi namin during that time. All I know is that we all wanted to improve the coverage. And it wasn't just pointing out mistakes. It was parang accentuating kung ano yung mga magagandang ginagawa namin lahat. And, you know, one thing I can remember about Joe, no, outside of our meetings and talking about the coverage was he loved to kiss. Yung mga muses ng PBA, lahat hinahalikan. Pati yung mga panelists, pati yung mga lalaki, hinahalikan niya.
Really?
He was a big kisser. And, you know, and Joe made everyone feel at ease. Ako, when I started doing games with him, I think I joined the panel for coverages in 1986, kung hindi ako nagkakamali. And Joe was a wonderful partner because he and in recalling how the panel was formed in answer to Dr. J's recollection, I think what Mr. Bobong wanted to do was change the way the coverage was to be conducted, because ang feeling niya, the time of Dick Ildefonso and Emi Arcilla, you know, not to discredit them because I thought they were legends in sports commentating, but he wanted to make something different. Sabi niya, he wanted to introduce a new style of coverage where it would be conversational. Parang dalawang panelists nag-uusap, talking about the game without describing what you're seeing. The style of coverage of before was puro play-by-play. Papasok yung color commentator only when there are free throws. Tapos he will say something about the stats, or he will say something about the play that happened before. Pero walang flow of conversation. Ang sabi ni Bobong, he wanted to get the audience to interact with the panelists by making it conversational. That was the new style of Mr. Bobong Velez. And he said he had the perfect characters in those guys, no? Si Joe, si Pingoy, because they were veterans. And then Steve Catan called out of nowhere. Sabi nga ni Dr. J, you know, I'm your man. And then we were looking at other guys, and you know, I remember Andy was a brilliant guy, you know, in terms of knowledge of basketball. So it was the consensus of that group at that time. Let's invite Andy Howe and let's find out whether he'd like to join this cast of characters. And you know, and they were saying perfect si Andy because of his knowledge. He'd be able to converse with guys like Pingoy and Andy about what was going on in the game. He would provide the analysis, but he would also provide the conversational style. Kanya shoot lahat.
Yeah, to piggyback on that lang, Sir Quinito, I have a question lang for Quinito and Andy kasi pareho kayong analyst. And during my brief experience as a sportscaster, I was also an analyst noon sa UAP. And you know, all of us know na yung talagang kailangan match kayo eh. You have to be on the same page as your anchor, and that doesn't always happen, di ba? Minsan mahirap sumingit sa anchor mo, or minsan sabay kayo nagsasalita or gano'n. Pero what was your experience with Joe the first time both of you teamed up with him?
Let's start with Dr. J.
He gave you all the chances, you know. Alam niya bago kasi ako rookie kumbaga sa di ba? And there would be a tendency of not understanding yung television medium eh. And going back to what Quinito was saying, perfectionist pa naman yung amo namin noon, comparing yung Bobong Velez. was a perfectionist. I think that's one of the reasons, 30 years later, 40 years later now, the reason why the coverage is appreciated because of the way it started there in 82. And he gave you every opportunity to get into the flow of the thing, of the game itself. Now, kumbaga sa basketball player, kahit ba hindi ka star, pag naglaro yung star, maganda rin na laro, kahit ka off the bench ka, madaling sumunod. It's very easy to get into the flow. That's why if you look at most of the teams, they look for that starting five para tuloy-tuloy yung magandang laro ng team. And then they select, coaches make the thing of putting people from the bench. I think Joe and even Pingoy, in fairness to Pingoy was also a very good anchorman. Plus,
Yes.
a guy who was a very nice person also. He understood how to give the analyst a chance. And I thought that kung ano man kami, dahil doon sa amin naging kasamahan, both si Joe at saka si Pingoy.
Wow.
Ako naman, Joe made it very easy. He kept the coverage light. Basketball is a very emotional game. And if you take it too seriously, you really get too, immersed in the game so much that you don't enjoy it anymore because you're too much into it because of the emotional aspect. But Joe had a way of turning a serious basketball game into something very enjoyable. He had a way with words. He was very lighthearted. He came up with a new basketball vocabulary, like he called the basketball spheroid. So ang dami niyang mga terms that he coined. Twilight zone, yung mga ganon. And I felt that his way of coverage made it so easy for the analyst to interact with him. And that was his professional way of making the coverage so good, no? And so enjoyable. But I remember, and this was told to me many, many times, that one of the things that Joe established in his broadcasting career was when he was a radio announcer in the 1964 Tokyo Olympics.
Yeah.
He covered the gold medal match of boxing between Anthony Villanueva and Stanislav Stepashkin of Russia. Featherweight division yon. And nung in-announce nila yung decision, Joe Cantada coined something that has become a legendary trademark saying. Ang sabi niya, "We was robbed." Yun. That one of the things that established Joe Cantada. Yung pagkasabi niya noon, nung natalo si Anthony Villanueva in a fight that many people thought he should have won.
Right.
Hindi naman siya sumigaw ng, "It's a robbery in Tokyo." Walang gano'n.
Iba yun.
Iba yun, okay.
May he rest in peace also. And then, going to Sev, Sev, you notice how Joe Cantada changed the broadcast medium talaga. When you were starting out sa radio, did you try to mimic him in yung pagkasabi niya? Did you kasi it has to start from somebody yung simula ng pagbabago ng ating lingwahe sa sports. And then I remember very clearly that it was you that I was listening to na parang the closest to Joe Cantada. Did you make a conscious effort to mimic him and try to spread the new language?
Alam mo, I'm sure babanggitin ni Andy at saka ni Quinito ito. We spent an enormous amount of time looking at the tapes after the game. Bobang was a very difficult boss, but he was a stickler. Sabi niya sa amin, "I am your first audience. If I do not get it, nobody will get it." And he did not say that na mayabang siya because he played for Ateneo and Lasal. He understood the game perfectly. Kung hindi lang masyadong self-conscious si Bobong, he would have become a great analyst actually kasi kaya niyang himayin yung game. Now sa radyo, we went Tagalog eh. Kami ni Romy Quintana rin first time akong umupo. And si Joe would be going to the game. He would, nung nag-split na yung panel into two, he would listen into the coverage ng radio to find out what was going on. And he would give me tips. And he would say, "Oh, ganito, banggitin mo to, ganito, ganyan, ganyan. Huwag mong kakalimutan na nasa radyo ka, ganyan, ganyan. Huwag mong kakalimutan, alam mo." And Joe when he gave advice, always said, kung wag mong hindi naman sa pagdadamot. And he always asked your permission before he gave advice. He said to me and Ed Pixon, sige, gamitin yung vocabulary ko. We would discuss it and Joe would break down words like, I love one of the words, yung frontal assault niya, a tad short. Sabi ko, Joe, ano yung tad?
Phalanx of defenders, mga ganun.
Tad, konti lang. Maliit lang. Gaganunin ka ni Joe then he would, and he taught us how to enjoy, tama si Quinito He knew how to tickle Dr. J with literature Let it not be said that there was not such a day as Camelot, blah, 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 blah. And Dr. J would laugh that nice laugh of his, yes, partner, I know that, diba? And would bring out, and what you got from Joe was, tama si Quinito the way he would open doors for the coverage, which we now do. Kaya kung minsan siguro pag matagal kaming hindi umupo ni Quinito, it's still there. Kami ni Dr. J. Ako, I've been in and out of the PBA, for various reasons. But you go back to it, and the formula still seems to work. Joe was so confident he could play around with Willie Marcial. Diba? Alala mo, Willie, pag hindi niya maintindihan yung ganun mo, sanyasan yan And no, that is the third personal foul. No, the second. Willie Marcial, your writing is like Egyptian hieroglyphics. Mali pa rin ni Willie Marcial lahat yun. Hindi yun. Mali ni Willie Marcial yun. Kaya sumikat. Akala ng mga tao nung una, si Willie Marcial isang matandang, di ba?
Tama.
Akala nila, ugod-ugod, hindi nila alam na left-handed pa si Willie, di ba? So, part of the joy, and tatawa kami lahat sa panel. And one thing you don't do with Joe, do not give him a joke during the timeout because he will use it on the air. Kay corny yung joke. Joe, sino lang ang player sa PBA na sinasabi ang buong pangalan pag kami foul? Or sino? Si Foul Alvarez. And such a horrible joke by Willie Marcial.
Bakit parating kayo, Kom, yung pinupunteriya niyo doon?
Yun, sobrang dikit kami. Ito, may sasabihin ko siyang classic na nangyari sa amin. Pagkatapos ng faces, si Waki, ako siya. Sabi niya, lipat tayo. Mga 2, 3 in the morning, may dala kami mga baso ng faces. Dalhin na natin yan. Sabi, dadalhin natin itong baso. Dalhin na natin. Di sakay kami sa sasakyan niya. Naka-scotch ako, siya naka-gin tonic, si Waki naka-brandy. So dala-dala namin yung baso sa loob ng sasakyan. Tapos sabi ko, sayang, pwede na pala mag-inuman sa loob ng sasakyan. Pumipulutan lang tayo dito. Alam mo ginawa ni Joe, naka-coat. May dinukot dito sa kanan pocket niya. Oh, Willie, kumain ka. May dalang chichurong bulaklak. Nilagay doon sa chichurong bulaklak. Oh, kumain ka. Ha? Ba't kami? Sige, kumain ka. May chichurong bulaklak pare sa Amerikana. Ganon ka-classic si Joe. May tinanong pa ako, sabi ko, di ba meron siyang Baker Dozen lead? Sabi ko, Joe, ano yung Baker Dozen lead? Bakit, di ba dozen 12? Hindi, pag bumili ka ng tinapay sa panaderya, pag bumili ka 12, dadagdagan ng isa, magiging 13. Kaya 13 lamang. Yun ang mga, at sinabi niya sa akin, Willie, ito mapapayo ko sa'yo. Sinasabi ko sa lahat ng interview ko, ano na matatanda mo kay Joe Cantada? Ito, mahalin mo trabaho mo, Willie, at mamahalin ka niyan. Mamahalin ka ng trabaho mo. Yun, hindi nawala sa isip ko at lagi kong sinasabi yun.
Ganda ng mensahe. Siyempre, si Joe Cantada is always inspired, actually, a generation. Me personally, when I saw him for the first time sa Ultra, I think this was 1990, first time ko yata, or 1989, first time ko manood sa Ultra, may hawak pang brandy yan Tapos mag-iossi yan going up to his, siya lang ang pwede sa buong Ultra na manigrilyo habang naglalakad. I don't know if you gentlemen ever experienced Joe Cantada in the flesh before, Charlie?
Yeah, of course. We used to see him often, when we would watch the PBA games. Kahit Araneta pa lang, and then Ultra, of course. I'd see him all the time. Never met him. Was never introduced to him. Pero siyempre, you're in awe when you see him walking around because you know how good he was. But I wanted to ask about the smoking, because nandun nga sa panel sa Ultra, nasa taas, may room yun, no? So, syempre, yung sigarilyo, sabi, kung si Dr. J ang partner niya, walang problema yun. Hindi naman magreklamo si Dr. J, no?
Pag si Quinito.
Pero pag yung ibang partners, did anybody complain? Quinito, did you ever complain na too much smoke? Did any of the producer, the other people in the room, the FDs and all of that, did anyone tell Mr. Velez, can we stop this guy from smoking? Of course, no one told him to stop because he kept doing it till the end of his career.
No, Joe is Joe. Kanya, we took him for what he was. And, he's always been everyone's idol. Kanya, we gave him all the respect. So, no complaints. It was just a pleasure to be in the same panel with him or to be working together with him. Kanya, it was just Joe's Joe. You take it for what he was, and what a great guy. I remember when he passed away. Ito, meron din akong hinalukat dito. I did 2 columns dated 1992 about him, and when he passed, I researched this and I got it out of my files, and it made me tear because it recalled his battle that led to his passing away. But and in this recollection, it said here that when he came home from San Francisco, he was in a black casket, and it exuded his own personality. Macho, black na casket, and inside the casket, he was wearing his bow tie and a dark suit. Kanya, he was really bigger than life. And nung kinakwento ng pamilya ni Joe kung ano nangyari sa San Francisco in his dying moments, he wanted to take off all the life support systems. Sabi niya, he wasn't afraid of dying because he was such a brave and courageous guy. He looked at death squarely in the face, and and he fought it out. When they discovered his illness, his cancer, in April of 1991, they gave him only a few months, but it lasted almost a year. He was battling, he was fighting, and that courage is something that's very inspiring. And in the end, he gave up his life. He said, "Lord, take me," and he went on his own terms. And for me, that's Joe Cantada. What a guy!
Yeah. Well,
maisingit ko lang yung dalawang yung nabanggit ni Quinito, yung dying in 88, Joe was supposed to go to the Seoul Olympics to cover the games. And then his doctor told him that he couldn't go. So the next guy I was so young at the time, I was just 2 years into it, and I got the call from Channel 4. I was so scared, no? Then Joe called me and said, "Gawin mo yan, kaya mo yan. Buksan mo ang sarili mo, pag-aralan mo yan." And I thought that amount of encouragement just gave me the boost to go. And then I don't know who was there. I'm sure Andy was there. When he was in the Makati Med, we were told by Vintage that Joe would see us for only 15 minutes. Okay, fine. So, Waki was there. I think I don't remember who the people were there. Then Joe, because he na-shave na yung head niya, suot niya yung parang golf cap niya, tapos yung bigote, nandun pa rin. Tapos sabi niya, halik kayo, kain tayo. And we ended up staying for about 2 hours. Nagiinuman kami sa loob ng Makati Med. And so enjoyed the company and the back and forth and yung happy and we all left with a tinge of happy sadness because we didn't know when we would see him again. We just missed him in the coverage, and I think we ended up losing what you could say was our big brother in the panel. If Pingoy was more like the father figure, he was older than all of us at that time. Joe was more of the brother that guided us.
Dr. J, what was your reaction when you found out that Joe was sick?
It's hard for me to say, but I think that I knew he was sick long before it became a serious thing. Every year, he would travel to Houston, take time off and go to Houston. I think he was already going to therapy. I'm not sure, but that's what I think I was told. I don't know if he told me that. So it's been a long time for him. But like Quinito said, he's a brave man. He fought it. Hindi until that very end. Yung kwento ni Sev, maganda yun. Nandun ka ba, Willie? Yung sa hospital? Marami tayo nandun eh. Yung
Wala
that
ako.
would be the last time I think we would see him alive. Because after that, I don't think anybody got to see him after that. But I knew he'd been sick for quite a while. And, hindi naman niya parang kinukwento, hindi siya humihingi ng simpatiya or anything. Just went through his work every day and tried to do his thing. Mamaya may kwento tayo, dagdag natin yan tungkol sa mga late. Hindi nag-late yan. He only was late, just like me. I've never been late for a game. And knock on wood, so if ever I get a chance to work again, it doesn't happen. He's only been late once, but I'll make you kwento that because that was a real funny thing. Parang sinadya niya yata yun.
Maganda yung kwento na yan.
Parang sinadya niya yun so that I would work alone. I'm the analyst eh. Siyempre, kami nila, mga analyst, kami nila Quinito, nag-aantay kami anchorman to start the game, di ba? Like Charlie and Magu and so on. Yung parang sinadya niya sa ultra yun eh. Parang, sabi ko, wala pa. Patay ako dito. Mag-isa ako dito. Tapos, mamaya konti, wala pa. Malapit na mag-umpisa yung game. Tapos, tumatawag. It's late already in the 80s. Basta go ahead. Pinagawa na sa akin. Tapos, dumating siya after 10 minutes. Pero I started the first quarter for about 6-7 minutes. Which is something that
Pinaakyat mo ko, pare. Remember? Pinaakyat mo ko, tapos dumating siya, yung patapos na yung first quarter, ako, first time ko yun sa TV. Malay ko kung ano nangyayari. So, baka ganun siya doon sa may ultra saya. Sige, tapusin nyo na yung first quarter. Ngingiti-ngiti, no? Parang feeling ko talaga sinadya.
Parang sinadya eh. Parang sinusugo niya ako to become a little bit more confident about doing the game. But this was already in the late 80s.
Yeah. Com Willie naman, of course, si Com Willie was the one who was always with Joe. May inkling na kayo nung malapit nang ma-confine si Joe before that last game that he did in night. May inkling na ba kayo na teka mukhang masama na yata ang lagay nitong kaibigan natin
Meron kami kasi katulad nga noon, ilang taon na kami every Thursday. Hindi kami sumasablay lumalabas. Si Thursday nun, sinabi sa akin ni Joe, Willie, sinisikmura ako, parang hindi ko kaya na pumunta sa lalabas, sa faces. Meron akong gamot sa sikmura. Sabi ko, Joe, inumin mo to, tagament pa yun eh. Mawawala yan. Kasi pag yan iniinom ko, nawawala. Ininom niya. After the game, sabi ko, tuloy tayo. Sinisikmura pa rin ako eh. Pass na ako. Doon ako nagulat. Sabi ko, pass ka. Hindi, kahit solo yun, lumalabas yun eh. Sabi ko, sige, kita na lang tayo sa Sunday. Yun. After 2 to 3 days, sinabi na sa akin na may cancer nga si Joe. Doon na nalungkot na ako noon. Kasi hindi talaga pala makukuha ng gamot yun.
Charlie?
Nandun tayo sa we're talking about already yung latter days na ni Joe Cantada. Balik tayo. Let's go back to the happier times, no? He was known as a ladies man. A ladies man. He'd like to kiss everybody. Para sa yung host ng Family Feud dati nung 80s. Si Richard Dawson. Hinalikan lahat. Ganon si Joe Cantada. And he would do that. He would try to do that with the muses. We all know the story. He tried to kiss Alice Dixon. Alice Dixon moved away. So he ended up kissing Philip Cesar instead.
Correct.
Diba? Hinawakan niya si Philip, hinalikan niya. Tapos parang galit pa siya, diba? With theatrics, no? May theatrics pa yun for the crowd to go crazy and all of that. But here's a question. Were there fans who were really trying to, were they going crazy over him? Kilabot ba siya? Would they cheer and shout his name and gano'n? May gano'n ba? Do any of you remember that?
Charlie, pasingit ng question ng sa Alice Dixon kasi Willie nandun tayo that night na si Alice Dixon nasa faces. Diba iniwasan ni Alice Dixon. nakita niya si Alice Dixon, she was with friends. Sabi niya, ikaw, iniwasan mo ko. Halika rito. Nakabawi siya. Pumayag siya.
Pumayag din eventually. Ayos lang sa TV.
This is a true story. And then, I think Alice put on a show during that opening, parang pa-cute na hindi ako, but finally, she allowed herself na i-kiss ni Joe. Ha! Nadali ko rin. And he was so proud of that moment. But, tama si Quinito, he just loved to buzz everybody. Even Ed Picson, ako hindi niya na-kiss kasi, hindi na tsempohan.
Meron din ako. Meron din ako. Di ba? Kiss ka ng kiss. Nakisa na ako ng mga 2-3 beses. Kiss ng kiss. Ito, opening. Kinikisa ng mascot, di ba? Sinuntok yung mascot. Sinuntok. Sabi ko, pag ikaw kumikis, okay ka. Pag ikaw kinikis, ayaw mo. Hindi, pwede yan eh. Ganun.
Hindi naman kasi maganda yung mascot eh. Kailangan maganda eh, di ba? Para halikan siya. But I'm sure he had fans who were going crazy over him. If they admired him because of his character, I'm sure the ladies were going crazy over him. Do any of you have any lady fan stories about Joe Cantada? Do you recall?
Ako meron.
Oh, sige.
Pero tsaka na lang, baka puntahin ako ni Joe sa akin. So,
censored yung kwento. Censored, hindi pwede. Oh, sige.
Gusto ko lang pala sabihin na
you have to understand, wala pang mga cellphone noon, mga camera ng mga fans noon. May mga nagpapapicture kay Joe, pero wala namang lalapit. May mag-aabot ng nagpapabate. Yun ang nakakainis nung araw. And it came to a point, Bobong said, walang batian on the air. Walang happy viewing. Di ba? Kalokohan talaga yung happy viewing di ba?
Gusto ko lang i-share, nanonood ngayon si Tito Boy Cantada, pati na rin si Gerard Cantada. They're eagerly awaiting itong episode na ito, the tribute natin kay Joe Cantada. Sorry, Charlie, you were saying, Sid ba yun? Sid you were saying?
No, I have a question lang kasi we all know si Joe was very colorful. He had a lot of colorful idioms that he invented for coverage. Was there any particular phrase na he used na sort of got him in trouble with either Boss Bobong or even with the MTRCB?
May ganun ba?
Meron ba yung medyo sumobra na sa
I don't know about getting in trouble, but yung living legend siyang gumawa noon. Because Jaworski was always known as the Big J, period. That was his...
El Presidente.
El Presidente,
Yeah, pwede rin. Because ako nagbigay ng pangalan nun player ko yan. So
okay.
I gave him the franchise in El Presidente. But he called him El Presidente. But Jaworski was a living legend to him, and even though they may not be very close, they had a lot of respect for each other. You can ask Sunny that. And it stuck. It stuck, that name. Maraming pangalan dyan. I think Quinito has given a lot of good names. Of course, yung kay Pinggoy na carjack game hanggang ngayon, nandiyan pa, dinagamit pa nga.
That's right.
Ay, magazine pa nga yun, lumabas pa yata ng ganun. So, marami na tayo nagawa ating mga Filipino anchorman as well as analysts that have given, people don't know this, but I gave Rudy Distrito the name of the Destroyer, and it stuck. All the years. I was the first one who called him that, and it stuck. But sometimes it's not easy to give names because hindi nakakagat. Going back to what you were asking, ang daming fans ni Joe sa mga masa. Yan, linalapitan siya, yung mga nasa gallery and everything. And in the old days, in Ultra, puno yung gallery na yan. Hindi like present times. In the old days, madaming tao nanonood ng gallery. Now, he also, yung mga tao sa what you would say, the lower box and the I think showed a lot of respect. Kaya nga parang aloof. Because si Joe mabait na tao yan and but he's not really exactly an extrovert. He kept to himself. That's why yung mga alam mo, Willie, tago mo na lang yan. Lang ako. I mean, he kept this thing. He was not exactly a person that but he would greet people. Yung mga halik-halik yan, kasama yan. Pati yung mga naging mga girls namin noon sa mga interviewers, ano yan, with his nice mustache, no? Alam niya naman yan. That was his trademark. So, he was not exactly a guy that you would say na would go out. Pero pag binati mo yan, babatiin ka niya, pupuntahan ka niya and everything. He loved that, But he didn't want to try to make a show that I'm Joe Cantada, you should recognize me.
Did he?
2 points lang, no? At the end of the day, Andy, yung sa fans, remember that one opening where he said, and I think he talked to Direk Ramon Romano, who was the father of our Direk Rafi, nung sinabi niya, mawala ang PBA, kayo ang PBA, kayo ang PBA, and the cameras went to the audience, which we rarely see, and then and they all applauded, parang they were finally acknowledged. Second, Joe watched every game. Joe watched every game. A lot of people think that maybe yung gift of gab niya, but he was prepared. He watched every game. He knew who coined the phrase na ganito. He knew what somebody said, and he would acknowledge that person for having, as Pingoy Henson would say, it's another carjack affair. He had utmost respect for Pingoy and Pingoy's ability as an anchorman also. And he acknowledged all of us, and wow, kakataba ng puso.
Tama yun, no? He was very quick to praise all of you. No? He would compliment yung partner niya pag maganda yung analysis. Sabihin niya, that's a great call of that play by Andy Howe. Ganito, ganun. Great analysis, Dr. J. Gano'n siya, di ba? So he was very quick to do that. Sabi mo, magaling makisama. Pero did he ever say something that, di ba, very funny siya sometimes? Is there something that made you stop? You couldn't talk because you were laughing? Or maybe he said something so poetic that parang hindi ka na nakahirit, Dean and Dr. J? Were there ever instances like that?
Start with Quinito.
Siguro ako nung sinabi kanina ni Com Willie, nung napunan niya na ang gamit ko rubber shoes sa coverage. Doon, wala akong masabi doon. Nung bigla niyang pinapokus ng camera ng aking sapatos, no? So I was tongue-tied then. No? Many instances where he would say things that would really make you laugh. Because yun nga, no? It was an enjoyable experience. Not just to work with Joe, but to enjoy the game, because this was entertainment at its best. Up to now, the PBA is still the #1 sports entertainment vehicle sa bayan natin. And Joe paved the way for making all of us enjoy the game. Of course, it's emotional, it's a serious game, but we have to enjoy it for us to continue watching it. And, it's a legacy that he has left behind. And it's also nice that, Noel, nabanggit mo, si Tito Boy at saka si Gerard are watching. They have also extended and preserved and cherished the memory of Joe Cantada by their involvement in sports. And, I remember Tito Boy was talking to me, and Gerard as well, when Joe passed away in San Francisco. They couldn't be with him in San Francisco because Gerard was in a golf tournament in Taipei. But for some reason, they were able to make it on time to meet Joe when he arrived at the airport. And, that was a very touching scene, no, for Boy and Gerard to meet Joe as he arrived in the airport. And Boy's involvement in sports, especially in volleyball, is something that's very, very also inspiring. And in the back of our minds, every time you say Cantada and Boy and Gerard, it would always be part of the legacy of Joe Cantada. And it's so nice that there's a family like the Cantadas, so devoted, so passionate about sports, and that has rubbed off on millions of Filipino fans.
Well, of course, they continue to be pillars of sports, Gerard saka si Tito Boy. So thank you for watching also. At this point, we're going to take a little bit of a break here, a little bit of a breather. Marami pa tayong kwento about Quinito Henson, from Quinito Henson, Andy Howe, Willie Marcial, and of course, Sev Sarmenta about Smoking Joe. But at this moment, we'd like to remind everybody, of course, that we have a new show here on the Globally Ballin Network. It's called Who the Heck Are We? And their episode 39 will feature itong si Dylan Ababu. So you might want want to catch that on Spotify and as well as on our YouTube channel. And of course, we also have another show. It's all about volleyball. Hang Time with Denise Dinsay. And episode 26 of that show will feature former NU volleyball player, now turned pro, si Kai Nepomuceno Balawaloa. So you can catch that as well. We are part of the Globally Ballin Network, and you can also catch everything about Globally Ballin on the website, www.globallyballin.com. And you can also subscribe. Not only you must subscribe to our YouTube channel. Why? Because episode 1 to 50 of this show, An Eternity of Basketball, will only be available on our YouTube channel starting tomorrow, Sunday. Next thing we want to talk about also, of course, you can take us on the go. An Eternity of Basketball is in audio form. It's on Spotify, so listen to our show, all the episodes, as much as you want on Spotify. And of course, we are also plugging this part. We go to Linktree/GloballyBallin, and that's where you get to know the geography of everything where you need to go to dito sa ating network in the Globally Ballin Network. Once again, we are talking about Smokin Joe Cantada. Usapang Smokin Joe. This is still Noel Zarate with Charlie Cuna and Sid Ventura. You're still watching An Eternity of Basketball. And, we'd like to thank also our guests again for joining us. Sev Sarmenta, Andy Howe, Quinito Henson, of course, PBA Commissioner Willie Marcial. So let's go back to the memorable anecdotes that Joe Cantada left behind. I mean, the Frankie Milk story. Naalala niyo pa yung mga ganun. Yung kanino ba siya nalito yun? Natawag niya Frankie Milk ba? Si Waki ba yun yung kasama niya nun? I don't remember exactly yung Frankie Milk yata yun.
Si Waki. Ang maganda nun, si Joe, lahat ng mga analyst niya, napakanta niya. Ang hindi lang niya napakanta, si Andy Howe. Sabi ko sa kanya, Joe, hindi mo napakanta si Andy Howe, Matechempo, hindi natin niya, Matechempo. Eto na. May coverage. Sineset up na niya eh. Sabi ko, eto na, mapapakanta na si Andy. Sabi niya, Andy, ano nga yung kanta ng ganito? Sinabi ni Andy. Kunwari, Greatest Lovable. Greatest Lovable. Oo, tama ka. Paano nga kakantahin yun? Pakanta na si Andy. Sabi ni Andy, no. Hindi pa rin napakanta si Andy. Hindi pa rin. Pero lahat yan, na-set up. Si Waki, si Quinito. Napakanta niya sa area yun. Paano nga yun? Napakanta niya. Si Andy Howe, ang hindi lang niya napakanta. Yun.
Wala si Andy para hindi niya napakanta. Yun eh. Wala pa si Dr. J. May kailangan lang ko basahin na comment just posted by Roy Acuna. When Rad Pasco made a shot, Joe commented, "Did you see Rad's face when he scored that basket? He was a maligayang Pasko."
Oh, yeah. I watched that game live, actually.
Maligayang Pasko. Di ba? Rad Pasco. Di ba? Yung wit talaga ni Joe, eh, no?
Basta nakursudahan ka ni Joe, may player no ng great taste, bihirang gamitin si Aaron Torres. Nung pinasok, di ba? Ganadong-ganado. And Aaron Torres is now running around the ultra like a headless chicken. Tawa, di ba? Alam mo sa panel, Willie, tawa tayo ng tawa lahat, di ba? Kasi
meron pa si Joe. Si Joe yung kay Rambo.
Rambo
Sanchez. Pero tiga Laguna yan, ha? Masarap ang puto dyan sa Laguna. Second, sa susunod na coverage, may puto kami galing kay Sanchez.
Kunento ni Vic sa amin. Kunento ni Vic yun dito sa show.
Nag-guest din si Vic dito.
At that time, ako yung for 2 years, I was the producer sa coverage, nag-dual duty ako. Kami yung first, barometer niya, kung nakakatawa yung sasabihin niya. Pag nagganunan kami, expectin mo yun. Nakakatawa talaga. Yung kinikwento ko sa inyo kanina, yung Tito Varela, pag pumasok. Diba? Pumasok yung Varela, hindi ko na, Manila Beer yata siya at that time, Doc J, no? And now the Ultra has been reignited with 50,000 kilowatts from the head of Tito Varela. Tawanan lahat yun, di ba? And ang akin lang, I don't know. I speculate kung if Joe was around, social media was already there. I'm sure he would have received both. There are some people who did not appreciate him also, but he couldn't care less. He did what he did actually.
We have a few photos that we'd like to share with you, gentlemen, that we've dug up from the vast Joe Cantada vault. Aaron, we can show a few pictures, and look at this. Makikita natin dito. The PBA TV panelists were named. What was this like at the time when Vintage was formed in 1982, gentlemen? Probably we'll start with Dr. J, since you were there from the start?
Well, we're going to a new kind of to a new voyage actually. Dahil nga katulad ng binanggit ni kasamang Quinito, iba yung gusto namin gawain eh. Let the game flow, try to call it on the part of the anchorman. Analysts try to come in, give an idea of what's happening in the game, not what you see, not what's already on television, and try to analyze the game as it flows, try to give the strategies of the teams, strength of the players, and so on and so forth. So it was a new concept, but it has really stuck. And I think it was really for the good of Philippine basketball. Dahil, alam mo, ang PBA, ang panahon niya, paganyan-ganyan yan eh. The 75 to the 80, 81, probably good years, especially because of the Chris Patayota dynasty, rivalry. Pero yung mga ibang teams, hindi ganun kalakas ang hatak. Until, of course, nagpanalo na rin yung mga ibang teams. In the beginning, for 3 years, silang dalawa lang nag-domina noon. No? Until UTEX and then eventually San Miguel, under the name of Royal True Orange, was able to win. So that time, it was also going down. Eh. After that, yung mga 84, pababayan eh. Tapos, umakyat ulit siya ng 88 nung dumating ang Pure Foods. And then, so on and so forth. Then Alaska's Grand Slam. Tapos meron na naman tayong period na pababa. So here, we're trying to build it up again. Once you get the wheels going, aakyat ulit yung PBA. And you need people like what we had at that time and what you're going to have in the future to continue to build up para gumanda ang ating entertainment dito sa coverage ng basketball games.
May kita natin in the picture sa name, sino ba yan? Sila Bernardino, of course, June Bernardino is the original man on the ball. How? Right there, of course, Dr. J, Pingoy Pengson, Steve Catan, and you can see there Joe Cantada sa likod. Kailangan ba parating ganyan kababa yung suot ni Joe Cantada? Na
yun na nga eh.
cleavage,
Kailangan kita dibdib eh.
We have
Kailangan kita dibdib.
another picture later. We have another picture later na ano.
Maganda yung kanyang yung chain niya. Nakuha niyo ba yung chain niya? Yung chain na maganda yan. Meron pa nga boxing ring yan. Yung glove.
Oo nga eh.
I have a question lang, sir. Siguro si Sir Andy lang mga kasagot. Ano yung backstory kay Steve Catan? Was he like based here in Manila? As you mentioned, he came out of the blue, diba?
He's a New Yorker. And I think he came to the Philippines at that time because he was sent here by his company or maybe his own small business. And he heard that there was this thing going on. Now, maybe he was also a New York Knicks fan or whatever. And he was a talker now.
Yeah.
He could really talk, no? So he felt that he could be part of it. Ang problema sa kanya, in 1982, after the first 6 months, he was working, tapos bigla nagpaalam yan that he had to go back to New York, to the States, to do some things. Maybe he was recalled to do some things or whatever. That's why I had to do every game for the last 3 months of that 1982 season. Every game ako gumagawa. Wala na akong kasama, except either Joe or Pingoy.
Well, Quinito, I think you were part of the selection process of the panel also at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And also, what was your impression about Steve Catan, and why do you think na naging bagay siya sa panel?
Something new. We wanted to change the outlook of the panel or the look of the panel. Kanya, when Steve Catan came in, he was so full of enthusiasm and looks like he knew the game. Parang street ball yan eh. Aficionado. So when he came in and when he volunteered his services, sabi ni Mr. Bobong, let's try him out. And he would be a good addition. And I thought that was really, really a strong cast. And Mr. Bobong said, 1982, pagdating ng vintage sa PBA, we had to put our best foot forward. Kasi tough act to follow yung Dick Ildefonso tsaka si Emmy Arcilla. And plus, we wanted to come up with something different, yung style. Conversational, enjoyable, interactive with the fans. Kanya, this was the best cast of characters that we had, especially with Pingoy at saka si Joe anchoring the broadcast. Ganda. Galing.
Just very quickly lang, I remember si Steve Catan, I don't know if you remember, no, nag-guest pa yan sa Itbulaga eh. Nag-one-on-one sila ni Vic Soto eh.
Actually, nagkaroon ng Itbulaga ng isang promotion. The Vic Soto was doing Steve Catan, di ba? You know, Pingoy, Asma,
Tama.
ginagaya niya si Steve Catan. So, very close ang relationship ng PBA, even though yung producer ng Itbulaga also handled the PBA in its early years.
Okay.
Yung
Si
Romy Halusos at saka
Tony Cubiera.
So later on, and Vic did a great, and basketball fan yung tatlo eh. And we also saw Vic go to the games when his manugang, si Pingris, was also playing. Diba?
Well, ako, si Bobong Velas like to discover new talent, as we all know. No? He actually tried out this guy by the name of Timothy Earl Cohn at some point in the 1980s also. But of course, that's for another story. We have another picture that we'd like to show all of you guys, just to bring back memories of Smoking Joe here. Look at this!
Yan si Dr. J. Si Steve Catan. Naalala ko si Steve Catan. Arnie Twaddles. Tawag niya kay Twaddles.
To talk about this picture, in the beginning, nag-try pa nga kami ng tatluhan. It was one anchor and the two panelists. As a matter of fact, I remember I even worked with June Bernardino as a analyst once with an anchor. I don't know if it was George Pingoy. So we tried that in the beginning. But then it became a little bit hard because, syempre, kakaumpisa nyo lang. Now, even though we work hard, if you ask Quinito, we practice every day for the months of January and February. 82 yata, nag-opening yan, March or April. Yung plano nga ni Willie na April 9, naalala ko yan because that would have been the opening of the first time the PBA opened in 1975, di ba? So, after that, bumalik na lang kami sa isang anchor, isang analyst, and June was moved to the man on the ball segment.
Right. Si Zal, is that
By
Zal
the way, in
Marte?
that picture, nandiyan si Zal Marte.
Yeah,
Yes,
Rizal Marte. Rizal.
Ano siya? What was he there?
Ano papel ni Sal diyan nung araw, guys?
Wala pa. I think he wanted also to come in and work as part of the anchor. So I don't know that. I don't remember if he ever really got a chance to work as part of the anchor.
Because I remember he was doing color occasionally nung early coverages ni Dick pagka wala si Emmy at that time.
You know, we had several men on the ball. Si Danny Zambrano was one of them. Tapos si June Bernardino, Zal Marte. I can't remember kung sino nga yung man on the ball. Pero as Dr. J mentioned kanina, perfectionist si Mr. Bobong. And I recall there was one incident when yung man on the ball, it could have been Zal Marte. Pero ini-interview niya si Baby Dalupan yata yun eh.
It was Danny Zambrano.
Danny Zambrano.
Danny Zambrano.
Nakalimutan niyo yung pangalan ni Coach?
Danny Floro ang tinawag niya.
Oo. Or there was another incident when ini-interview niya yung mama na coach. Tapos sabi, ano nga ang pangalan niyo? Parang gano'n. I think it was Baby Dalupan.
Dito, ang priceless yung reaction ni Baby Dalupan nung tinawag siya ni Danny Floro.
Ayun, no? I think that was the last that we saw, whoever that guy was.
Wow. Diba nagmano the ball din si Poch Gayoso? Nagmano the ball din?
Yeah. Sige, let's look at the other photos here. This is great, guys.
If you look at the comments now, everyone's recalling how the Eat Bulaganga would spoof the PBA coverage, nicknames and everything. Philippine Bulaga Association.
Dito uso headset dati, headphones, tapos may mikropono. Kaya kay Steve Catan, parating sabog yung audio eh. Pag siya nakasalang dyan. But
everyone's there. Ang dami din yung nakaupo magkakatabi.
I think
sino ba ito, Charlie?
Parang beginning ito yung opening.
Bingo, opening yan eh.
Okay.
Kaya marami nanonood.
Yes, Bingo yung hawak sa
bibig niya. That's all.
Bingoy, Dr. J. Sino katabi ni Joe?
Si
No, yung
Bernardino.
sa kanan.
June B. Tapos si
Bernardino.
Ito yung kasama rin yata dun sa isang photo. Parang ibang angle lang.
Connected lang.
Yeah.
Sige, let's check out the next photo, Aaron. This is actually a video grab. I remember this. Yung paalisin na daw sila ng barangay tanod. Naalala ko tong eksena to. They barangay tanods want to leave us or they will charge us with vagrancy. Yan ang sinabi ni Joe Cantada niyan. Kasama si Freddie Webb. But this was already in nakita natin yung mga uniforme na talaga ng mga panelists ng time na yan. What's your recollection of this, Kong Willie, dito sa part na to? Nandito na yata kayo sa PBA ng time na yan.
Alam ko, ultra yata yan eh. Kung nilalagyan talaga namin ng background sa likod. Kasi yung mga fans, sumisilip, kumakaway. So, nilagyan na yan na sinasabi talaga ni Joe na pinapatayan na kami ng ilaw ng ultra. Pero diretso pa rin sila mag-commentate, mag-analyze ng game.
Yan yung time kasi na si Freddie Webb, pag nagbasa ng box score, talagang babasahin niya yung box score. Nabagalan yata si Joe Cantada, di ba?
That's right.
Galing eh. Yung palalayasin na dapat sila daw ng barangay tanod for vagrancy. Naalala ko itong excellent to. What's the next photo that we have?
And some people don't remember na Freddie Webb was part of the
Yeah.
Oh, who's that young guy? Who's the young guy on the right?
Who's that?
Guy.
Naka-rubber shoes si Quinito Henson. Naka-rubber shoes.
Hindi
Yan ba yan?
Si Joe Cantada was an Atenean, right?
Yeah.
Sambeda High School at Ateneo College.
Okay, na-Alaska niya lagi si Waki and I guess the dean, no? And he would
Quinito,
also
yan
take shots at Lasal. Diba?
Tama.
Yeah. Well, what's your memory of this picture in the general arena of how your relationship was with Joe here?
I think this was in 1996. Opening yata ito ng season eh. And kita mo, no, look at the posture of Joe. He was so parang at ease. Tignan mo, tsaka nakatawa siya, gano'n. And ako naman, very stiff. I think this might have been one of my first ever appearances. Pero, that was Joe. It just made you feel so at ease. I don't know if you guys remember, noong 1979, bumisita dito yung Washington Bullets at that time.
Yes.
And played against the PBA All-Star. Joe Cantada was on that panel. I cannot remember kung sino yung kasama niyang analyst eh. Do you guys remember?
No.
Yeah, you were asking me this the other day. I actually don't remember watching the game.
We need to find out. Does anyone know? Yung mga followers?
Yeah, yung mga followers natin, our followers are pretty good.
I remember I was involved in that production. Vintage yata yun eh. That was a special coverage of Vintage.
Okay.
Because in 1975, actually nag-umpisa yung Vintage. Yung mga special shows, nagkaroon ng Lasal Ateneo, parang classic game, something like that. Tapos marami sila mga basketball-related one-off shows. And when the Washington Bullets came here, I think Vintage launched it. And Joe Cantada was already the anchor at that time. Ako yata, I provided information about the players. So nandun ako sa panel, but hindi ko din matandaan what exactly was my involvement and who was the analyst in that game.
Well, our fans would probably be able to answer that, but this is a classic Quinito Henson picture. Actually, pwede pang blackmail to, Quinito, ano? Sige, let's check out the next one. Let's check out the next one, Aaron. This is the many labas. Yan na, Sev Sarmenta. Kala ko si Yoyo eh.
This was I think my birthday in 86.
Anong restaurant yan? Kamayan.
Yeah,
Kamayan obviously.
This is at Kamayan. I didn't know if Joe, as usual, Joe and the rest of the guys with the press, we closed the place at around 2 or 3 in the morning. So, andyan si Alice Lopez din, yung namatay na sports writer, and other guys. Si Joe, no? Parang ano talaga, macho man talaga ang dating,
Parang leatherish pa yung jacket na. Pero yung hair ba ni Joe Cantada, what's that? Is that Vitalis or something? What does he put on his hair? Brill cream? Brill cream.
Siguro yun.
Fanchotic.
Binibigyan ka rin ba ng pomada ni ni Joe. Ito, subukan mo ito sa buhok mo, Willie. Baka gumanda rin niya, katulad ng akin. Wala bang ganun?
Wala. Ganyan talaga na buhok ni Joe Cantada. Na pamada, lahat. Maski na sumayaw sa faces yan, hindi nagagalaw yan. Sumasayaw
What are you
sa'yo, ha?
doing? You look like you're dancing here. Singing or dancing or both?
Well, he just arrived. He surprised everybody by arriving at that birthday. He was not scheduled. I was not scheduled. He was not scheduled on that game day nung araw na yun.
Okay.
Okay, classic kabayan din yan eh. Sige, Aaron, what's up next? This one.
So, mas bago na lang konti to.
Oh, mas bago na kasi nandiyan na si Phil.
The thing that happened here, Joe was given by the Philippine Olympic Committee an award for Olympism. Because of what Quinito said earlier, yung coverage niya ng 64 Olympics. That's Mr. Ray Marquez, si Bobby Ante, who used to be with the radio panel. Bill Velasco was with us at that time. I think we celebrated Joe's award, right? We all went to the awarding ceremony actually.
So, what year was this? What year was this? Seb?
If Bill is there, that should most probably be 89 going into 90. 88, 89 to 90 siguro. Or after, yeah.
But okay. We see all the photos. See Joe on the panel wearing the tie. Weren't there some coverages na he wouldn't wear a tie back then?
Pero ba ganun kang Willie?
Or was he required to wear a tie? Alam ko may mga times na wala siyang tie, di ba?
When he would do this boxing, but I think if he toed the line pag sa vintage, because Bobong Veles was very strict about the way the panel looked. In fact, to the point, Bobong, when he would go abroad, would buy us ties. He would give us ties. Of course, ang nauna sa amin dun was Quinito. Quinito already had those. Quinito, alala mo yung mga basketball ties mo? Ikaw ang unang nakita. Meron yan eh. No? So,
until now.
Bobong was very... Sabi ni Boss Bobong, power tie tayo, power tie. Sabi ko,
tama. Yan ang tawag na, power tie.
Diba? Ano yung power tie? Yung pala yung mamahalin na tie na magandang ano.
Hindi, saka yung magandang tignan sa TV.
Tama.
Kasi they have grabe.
Depende rin yung kulay, no?
Yung kulay na pula or very loud green, ganun. Medyo, that's why you call it power ties.
Alam mo guys, mabuti walang texting nung araw ha. Kasi si Bobong, when he would listen at home, he had a hotline actually. May telephone siya dun sa loob ng booth. And that he would call during the game. Pakisabi mo kay Joe at kay Andy, na ganito, ganyan. Si Joe at si Waki, laging puro kalokohan. May isang panel meeting tayo, we have to stop fooling around in the coverage. And he was pulling Joe and Waki. But you know where it's going. Then, here is what happened. Right after that meeting, first quarter, Joe says to Waki, uy, ikaw, behave tayo ha. And it goes on for 6 minutes of the first quarter. Hindi makatiis yung Waki, kiniliti yung Joe. Hindi rin nakatiis yung Joe, nagkiliti. What could you do about it? And the Mantequilla came out, pasang sisiyo, and everything. Joe's horrible math came into play. Di ba? Alala mo yun, hindi niya mahuli yung subtraction ng, halimbawa, ang score ay 83-79. Madali lang yung kay Dr. J at kay Quinito. Pero kay Joe ko natutunan yung pag 10 points, it's a 10-point lead. Pagka malaki, it's a huge lead. Diba?
Ayaw na na-compute eh, no?
Ang favorite ko line dati kay Joe, and Dr. J, thank you very much. You took the words right out of my mouth. Kaya gaganin ka ni Joe.
Hindi niya makalkula. Hindi ba kayo natotrouble nun kung Willie na sasabihin kayo ni Mr. Bobong na ay bantayan mo yung dalawang yan pag may kalukuhan
sa akin.
Lagi yun.
Basta yun, Joe Cantada, Waki Trillo. Lagi. Tuwing panel meeting namin, pare, magpa-panel meeting kami ng 12:00 ng tanghali. Matatapos kami 1:00 na madaling araw. Yan yung panel meeting. Sinasabihan lagi si Joe at si Waki, huwag kayong magbiro, wala. Pagdating sa coverage, wala, hindi mapigilan. Magulo talaga yun. Lalo right after Lasal Ateneo, patay. Patay yung dalawa na yun.
And Joe used to say, alam mo, Tisoy, hindi kami galit sa Lasal. Sa'yo kami galit. Hindi ako galit kay Dr. J.
Mabuti hindi umabot sa ganun sa'yo, Quinito. I mean, he like to poke fun at Lasal people and then he's working with you. Did he ever go that far with you?
Yes.
Yeah. Oo, ganun din. No one was spared. And we loved it. We loved it. Okay lang eh. Because it gave us a chance to repartay, ganun. Pero, so many enjoyable moments. So many great memories. Iba si Joe. Iba ang makisama. And, he's talagang icon yan eh.
At saka, alam mo, pagka nanalo kami alala mo, Willie, nag-champion tayo nag-basket, pag tinatalo natin ng press sa Little League natin sa PBA, ubos yung press nun. And now, a stunning victory by the Vintage basketball team against the PBA press score. And the score of a devastating, halimbawa, nanalo kami malaki, wala. Ubos ang press nun. Kung sino yung commissioner.
Alam mo kung bakit ubos ang press nun? Si Quinito Henson nasa press. Naglalaro sa press yan. Hindi naman vintage yan eh. Kaya inuupahan ni...
Tinawagan ng foul. Di ba? Ubus na yung oras, tinawagan ng foul.
Grabe yun. Yung referee na yun, dapat ibang.
Bilay mo, guys. Guys, ito sitwasyon Ito sitwasyon. Lamang sila ng isa, press. Lamang ang vintage ang bola. Binato namin yung bola. Mga 2 seconds to go. Paghawak ng bola ni Rapi, yata.
Ramano.
Pumito yung referee. Foul. Si Quinito naka-foul. Si Quinito. So, bakit pinang 2 seconds?
Phantom foul.
Nanalo kami. Si Quinito, ang goat nung siya nagpatalo, kaya galit sa referee yan.
Hindi na yun. Napapasok ko lang. Napapasok ko lang. Tapos tinawagan pa ako ng foul.
Talagang very fresh pa rin sa memory ni Quinito.
Ilang years ago na yun,
Hindi na nakalimutan.
Ang coach ng Vintage, Commissioner Willie Marcial.
Ito maganda, guys. Ito nangyari sa shower. Sinaabak nagsa-shower eh. Grabe naman si Quinito. Pinaul-paul pa yun. Ba't pinaul yun? Sabi ni Abak, sino may sabon? May nagabot ng sabon. Kasi curtain. Salamat. Sabon siya. Sino to? Sino nagabot ng sabon? Ako, si Quinito. Si Quinito. Tawa kami ng tawang kinikwento sa akin after the game. Kaya lang yan, si Quinito nagabot pero tinira si Quinito.
Dapat binato mo yung sabon.
Damputin mo yan. So we have more photos to share with you, gentlemen. Dami namin nahalukay dito. I hope this brings back good memories sa inyo. Eric, can we see the next picture? This is Joe Cantada during, I believe, the 1983 awarding ito. Kasi ando si Ricardo Brown. Di ba 83?
86 yan.
86.
86 awards yan. That's, Kasi Hobalde and Fernandez were with Tanduay already.
Victorino. Manny Victorino.
Two great taste, 1 Ginebra and 2 Tanduays. That was the thing about Joe. You mentioned it earlier, no? He was the ring announcer for the Thrill in Manila. He had this rapport with the fans, no? So it's not just on the panel, but even when he's hosting these types of awarding ceremonies, he had something with the fans, and he could actually get all the fans on his side, even if he was speaking in straight English, diba? Kasi at that time, straight English yung coverage halos yung awarding ceremonies. Really, he had this sort of I don't know, charisma or something. How do you explain that, Sir Sev?
Let's go to the All-Star Game 1989 nung sila ni Dr. J. For him to say, Mon Fernandez and Sonny Jaworski, 2 people who may have never talked to each other for the last 10 years, and he was saying what the fans actually knew. And Dr. J comes in and says, they connived for that winning basket,
Right.
Joe. Diba yung exact words nila at that time. And I think Joe touched a pulse wherein, ang galing ng command niya of the language, no? But on those moments na simple lang, sisimplehan niya at kukonect sa fans yun. Pero pag nagtagalog siya, mas lalong tagos. At lalong kumukonect siya sa fans. And I think the fact that he was larger than life also helped.
Right. And the voice, of course, yung voice talaga.
Yeah, I remember nung nag-retire si Bogs Adornado, may retirement ceremony. Of course, he hosted it. So, Ultra. Kumanta siya.
Yeah.
Yung My Way, ginawa niyang Your Way. Kumanta siya in front of the Ultra crowd, no? So, but he was that kind of guy, di ba? I don't recall any other a panelist doing something like that before or since, no? Pero yun, he had that flair for
He was an entertainer.
Yeah.
Entertainer.
Yung ginawa niyang you did it your way. Ginawa niya si
You have to
Bogs,
understand, as
serenading.
Quinito pointed out, no, he had an album. He would actually sing at a place called El Bodegon nung araw. That was the time when nightclubbing was nightclubbing. He would have gigs na ganun. He enjoyed the singing. And if you read the back of that album, sasabihin niya, ito, ano ko lang ito, passion ko lang to. And when you hear his Sandy and the Clowns, medyo very Hollywood ang dating. Very classic yung training ni Joe. And he had that beautiful voice talaga, which really helped.
Baritone.
Yeah.
Going back, just addition to that, tama si Quinito because I watched him before I met him in a show in the old Rojas Boulevard, David Boulevard, in a very big club, no? And he had a show there. And he always told one of his favorite songs, and you can ask his wife, is Send in the Clowns. Yung gustong-gusto niya yan. But he always, I use the word stentorian voice, no? Di ba? Kasi, and up to now, we will always remember him to have that, no? But he did love to sing. He loved to perform in front of people. And that was not an easy crowd to perform to, you know? And I remember may mga ibang players pa nga nagpupunta dun. And they watch it. I remember some of the Crispa players were there before.
Yeah.
And he sang for my wedding pala. Thank you. Pare.
Oh, he did. Okay. One last thing about this photo lang on that's on the screen right now. A few moments after this, I recall Sonny Jaworski moved to the other side of the line. Yeah, I remember that. Because, ayaw niya katabi, basta. So he moved to the other side of the line. And there's a photo that shows that.
Ayaw niya katabi si Mon.
Nakita ko yung biglang may kakamay sa kanyang player, nahulog yung kanyang envelope. Sabay dumana sa kanya yung player. Hindi niya nakamayan. Tama yan.
Okay.
Tapos naman yung Willie, ha?
Nakatakido pa yata siya sa ceremony.
Willie would remember, no? Because Willie was often another floor director. And I think what people have to understand why Willie is an effective commissioner now of the PBA, because his training is really in production. He knows the alam niya yung planning, the execution, the things that are needed to make something work. Willie was always our Mr. Reliable, whether golf coverage yan, boxing yan. Willie was, and we knew also that Joe trusted Willie. When Joe would see Willie, kung magkakamali siya, pwede siyang may masisisi or hindi siya ipo-frustrate ni Willie. At saka we had a guy named June Vigayan, nung araw, remember? They worked so well together, and that's where that trust happened.
Okay, what's next? We still have some photos. I think we have a couple
it looks
more.
like we have a lot of photos.
Here's si Tito Bobong. Why is Ronnie Magsanok part of this photo?
Yeah, I wanted to ask him. And why is Ronnie Quintanar wearing a
We
sandals?
wanted to invite players. We wanted to invite players. The concept of this one was to invite players also to parang reversal of roles ang concept.
Parang players only.
Yeah.
Players only sa NBA. Okay. So kayo sila nag-interview sa inyo para ganun sa Sonny and Ronnie. Si Romy K naman naka-jersey.
Pumayag si Romy K na ganyan yung itsura niya, no?
Diyan na uso body fit eh.
Nauna pa siya kay Samboy Lim, ha?
But you know, Ronnie Quintanar, it was so sad that when he passed away, not too many fans knew about it after all the things that he had done for the fans with his radio program.
Yeah.
I went to his wake and I was so surprised that very few people actually remembered or knew that he had passed away.
He had been away from the spotlight na rin for a few years. Kaya hindi rin nabalitaan ng karamihan. So Pingoy as well. When Pingoy passed away, it wasn't too much news about that.
nauna si Pingoy to pass. Siya ang unang nawala sa director.
Right.
Of course, there's Joaquin Trillo he's still promoting Lasal with his jacket there.
Bagay naman sa kanya.
Sonny J.
And so Ronnie Magsano, this is like a glimpse into what he would be doing in the future, actually.
That's right.
I mean, who would have known, di ba? Who would have known at the time si Ronnie Magsano would turn out to be a broadcaster?
No, that's a great line. Vintage Veles, the other side of basketball. The other side of basketball.
Yeah, well, let's look at the next photo, Aaron. Oh, look at this, Tony Lu.
Lu. Yun yung sinasabi ko, yung ganyan picture. Yung shirt niya, kailangan 2 botones lang sa baba. That's all he needed.
Kasi may maganda siyang kwintas eh. Makapal yung kwintas niya. Tapos may malaking pendant yun. Kaya kitang-kita mo yun. Tapos tama nga si Dr. J. Meron siyang sing-sing na boxing glove.
Si Norman Black ba yung isa nandiyan sa picture doon sa dulo? Parang si Norman yan, ano?
Malamang.
Possibly, no? Ano yung what was his cigarette brand?
Parang
Marlboro Lights.
Marlboro Lights.
Lights na yan. Nauso na pala Marlboro Lights.
Okay.
One of the things he loved to do was to pick on Norman Black about his free throw shooting. When Norman would analyze somebody doing the free throws, he would tease Norman. Norman, of course, had a Dr. J and Quinito would know this better. Fairly average, 70-80%. But Joe would pick on Norman. I dare you to analyze the free throw shooting, Mr. Norman Black. Gaganunin niya yun. And Norman would do that sheepish grin of his. And Joe would pick on him and natatawa lang si Norman.
Yeah.
Galing yan. And well, of course, Mr. Tony is still around, no? Still taking photos of the PBA until now.
Oh, yes.
That's another classic photo there. Okay, how many photos do we have left?
That's the last one.
That's the last one.
That's the last one. Okay.
So very, very quickly, gentlemen, as we say goodbye to all of these photos. Simulan natin kay Quinito. No? Quinito, what was your fondest memory of Joe Cantada in your years? It doesn't even have to be when you were working with him. I'm sure you're both boxing aficionados. You must have hit it off in boxing. What's your fondest memory of Joe Cantada, Quinito?
My fondest memory of Joe was how he influenced broadcasters to be professionals. I remember one time when I think Joe was invited to speak by a school, and Joe said he would accept, but that they would have to pay him a fee. And I was saying, wouldn't you like to do that for a school? I mean, just appear, ganon. Sabi ni Joe, I don't need the money. He was very wealthy. But sabi niya, I want to be able to establish a code of professionalism among broadcasters. People shouldn't take us for granted. And we, on our part, should assume the responsibility of being professionals. So when we are invited to speak, wherever, by school or by an organization, ganon, they should consider us to be professionals. This is our living, sabi niya. So even if it's just a drop in the bucket, let them acknowledge that we are professionals. And we have to live up to that standard. For me, I think that was a very telling moment nung in-explain niya sa akin yun. No? And, I've carried that thought with me for the rest of my, my career, no, up to now. And I'm thinking, tama si Joe, no? I think we have to consider ourselves to be professionals, meaning to say we have to be at our best level whenever we perform as broadcasters. And that, I think, is the legacy of Joe Cantada. He wanted to parang set the stage for all of us. And he was the man who made it happen. And by his own example of professionalism, we began to realize that, yes, we really have to step up to the plate. And if we are to be known as broadcasters or commentators or anyone involved in the production of a TV coverage for basketball, for whatever, any sport, we had to be professionals and we have to be at the level of Joe Cantada.
Wow, that's a great share. Quinito. Dr. J?
Maganda nga yun Pakiulit nga yun para magawa nila yung panahon nito. Maganda talaga yun. I mean, you know, you guys that work there, you know that, di ba?
Yeah.
So I would think that one of the happiest moments that I had with him, and we had a lot because he was my kumpare. He loved my son Atom a lot, as well as I love Porky, his son. Like I told you, he sang at my wedding. This was the same day as Sev got married. The first time that the PBA played on a Saturday, December 1st, 1984. And na-joke niya yung asawa ko na malas, swerte daw ako. Paano ko naloka asawa ko? But, in other words, he was always being funny, he loved me a lot. That's this plain and simple. And he gave me every chance to be a good broadcaster, and I appreciated that. And I think that in the times that we spent together, you miss people that are really close to you. I have friends, but I don't have a multitude of friends. He was really one of them. And he was not only a mentor, a friend, and everything. I think I owe a lot to him. There are a couple of people that I owe a lot in my life, and he is one of them.
He's also probably the only one to get away with calling Dr. J Andrew on air.
He did that, I think, on purpose, so that people would know me. He called me Dr. Andrew Howe, the same way that he used to joke around with Willie Marcial. Kasi he really wanted na makilala si Willie Marcial. He knew the sacrifices. That's why Willie can talk about a lot of people, because Willie was there every game. Nandun sa loob. Hindi katulad namin kasi may assignments kayo, may araw, hindi ka doon. But we do watch at home. Pero si Willie is there. And he wanted to reward Willie. Believe me, I know that. Kasi pinag-uusapan namin dalawa yan. Kaya nga talagang pinagbabalikan pa namin yan para maisingit namin yan na hindi kami mapapansin ni Boss Bobong.
Before we get to Kong Willie, I'll go to Sev muna. Fondest memory, Sev, of course, you're the best Joe Cantada impersonator that we've had. You've been doing this for years. Yeah,
4 years, an enjoyable part of my sportscasting career. I never thought I would be able to work with him. I had two quick stories. One, when he hosted the Seoul Olympic Games, he became the studio host. Then he called everybody to the set. And as we bring to a close the Seoul Olympic coverage of the People's Television, here are the people who I have worked with. Tuwan-tuwa yung mga tao. And then it became very joke nung sinabi niya, this is the ugliest bunch of people I have ever worked with in my life. Takbuhan lahat yung tao. Nobody wanted to be. And then he called the late Twink Makaraig and somebody named Judith, I remember at the time. He loved everybody. He called them, they were the writers, he called them the synchronized typing twins and something like that. Basta kasali ka lagi. And the last thing I'd like to share is the generosity of Joe. Generosity, he gave us so many lessons. Wala pa yung word na mentoring nung araw, hindi naman talaga formal yun. But he would give advice, and who wouldn't listen to Joe Cantada? And sometimes, in the spirit of brothers, there were little skirmishes along the way. Hindi naman lahat yan smooth sailing all the while. Personalities would clash. There were differences within the group, but they were all smoothened out quickly, and Joe played a big role in smoothing out those things so that they would not last. Sometimes there was one conflict, sinabihan niya isang tao, tama na yan. And who wouldn't listen to Joe Cantada? If there's something we can pass on to the others, is the generosity of our profession. It's a lasting gift that I will always treasure. Thank you.
Last but not least, Kong Willie, of course, you spent the longest time with Joe. So anong fondest memory mo sa kanya?
Yun, tama silang lahat. Araw-araw ko kasama Joe. Lagi sa coverage kasi tama si Andy, nandun ako. Yung pakikisama niya, yung kala niya social, down to earth masyado si Joe. Katulad na sinabi ko, uminom kami sa kalye, kung saan kami pupunta. At yung aasa rin ako sa coverage. Yun. Pero pag kasama ko na sa labas yan, magsasabi na yan, Willie, ito gawin mo. Yung hindi lang sa coverage, kung anong, yung inaano mo sa buhay. Katulad ka sinabi sa akin na hanggang ngayon, paulit-ulit ko sinasabi na mahalin mo trabaho mo at mamahalin ka rin. Hindi ko malilimutan yon. Iba si Joe, iba. Nung sinabi nga tuloy lang ni Andy na pare may tribute kami kay Joe. Saan yan? Yun nga, dito sa programa. Sasama ako dyan. Kaya tinawagan ko agad si Attorney Charlie. Gusto ko sumama, gusto kong yun nga, yung iba yung samahan namin eh. Itong silang tatlo, si Joe, iba yung samahan, at si Waki, iba yung samahan nun. Hanggang ngayon, hanggang kahit kailan, solid kami eh. Solid. Kung buhay pa si Joe, parang ginagawa ng tatlo sa akin. Nagbibigay sa akin ng advices ng tatlo na yan. Pili, ito gawin mo. Ito gawin mo. Ito sabihin mo. Ito. Lahat. Si Andy, si Sev, si Quinito. Lahat kinukonsulta ko yung mga yan. Kung nandito si Joe, sigurado yon. Sigurado. Kaya iba. Saludo ako sa iyo, Joe Cantada.
Of course, isang pong tanong, Willie, connected to that. Yung rise mo to being the PBA commissioner, gaano kalaki ang naging influence ni Joe Cantada sa decision-making mo that led to your being the commissioner of the PBA?
Kung wala naman si Joe Cantada, wala naman si Willie Marcial, hindi naman ako makikilala, pare. Siguro hindi ako makikilala. So, dahan-dahan na yun. Nakilala na natin yung panel, nakilala natin si Noel Ayala, nakinuha ko sa PBA. Nagsimula lahat sa Vintage. Ako, naging statistician ako, napunta sa Vintage. Dahil kay Joe Cantada. Madami nakakakilala ng Willie Marcial pero hindi alam kung sino si Willie Marcial. Yung sinasabi sa akin ng mga fans, ng mga coaches, ikaw pala si Willie Marcial. So, si Joe Cantada ang gumawa sa akin.
Charlie?
Yeah. Well, we're about to end the show, no? But I'd like to ask all our guests sa araw na ito. He had a lot of one-liners, mga phrases, monikers that he gave to players in the PBA. What's the most memorable one for you, Dr. J?
I can't really think, but I can't really come up spontaneously to think about what he really said. I thought that there were marami, and a lot of them stuck. Not only with me, but with the basketball fans. So, yun lang masasabi ko. Let me greet Boy and Gerard. Kasi yan si Gerard, medyo nakasama ko yan, maliit na bata pa yan. Parati ako linuloko ni Joe yan. Dahil naharang ako sa golf yan eh. Silang dalawa ni Cosco Obed. Pero magagaling yan and I love those two kids, you know.
Yeah. Hindi na sila kids, Dr. J, malalaki na daw.
Malaki na ngayon, grabe.
Yeah, and then quick question lang kay Sir Andy. Was it Joe who came up with the Dr. J moniker?
Yes, more or less. And there were a lot of sports writers and editors. Yung makilala nun sila Vic Villafuerte and so on, sila Rudy Navarro. I have all of those albums that I have from the three. I have 3 of those big ones. And they used to sell 500 pesos yung mga clippings na gano'n. Alam ni Quinito yan, 3 yung ganyan ko. I could have gotten a 4th one, hinanto ko na kasi medyo paayaw na ako ng basketball on that set. Pero I had one on a Sports Weekly wherein I was operating on a basketball. And remember, Dr. J. Julius was one of the most popular players in the NBA going to the early 80s from the 70s. No? So, he coined that Dr. J. Tama-tama naman na apelido ko J, but I'm not a doctor. I'm supposed to be a doctor. I'm supposed to be a doctor of basketball.
Tatanong sa akin, anong specialty ni Dr. J? Hindi po doktor yun. Go ahead, Quinito.
What do you know? What's your favorite line or your favorite moniker from Joe Cantada?
From Joe. He said he called Sam Boylan the Skywalker. I think that was one of his best monikers. And for Andy, Destroyer for Rudy Distrito was a beautiful and appropriate moniker.
yes.
Ako naman yung mga monikers ko, Crunchman for Alex Cabagnot, The Spark si Mark Gagiwa. I remember si Josh Urbistonto, Fireball. So yeah, there were quite a lot. Kanya, those things, as Andy said, no, yung pagbibigay ng monitor, hindi pinag-iisipan yun eh. Sometimes it just comes spontaneously.
Correct.
Yeah, I remember for instance, in the FIBA World Cup in 2019, when I was covering Italy, yung si Campaso, who's now playing in the NBA. Because of these magical moves, biglang, I said, this guy's the magician. Tapos si Bogdanovic, when he was playing for Serbia in the World Cup, I called him Mr. Automatic. And I think it's been used now by FIBA. Those are now their nicknames.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about this?
Sev?
Noel, are you going to close it? Mr. Sev has to do some Joe Cantada lines, right? Joe Cantada lines.
May tanong ka ba?
Just very quickly, if the question is kung ano yung nabansagan ni Joe, I think he had the most fun with Rambo. I think he had the most fun with Rambo. Yes. Tower of Power was so Benji para, especially in 89 when he was MVP and Rookie of the Year. But Rambo, he had the most fun. Kasi lalo na pag binabati siya sa interview ni Vic Sanchez, nais ko magpasalamat sa lahat ng pati yung kumpare ko si Joe Cantada. Diba? So, that was phenomenal, but that's the one I remember with Joe.
May tanong ka ba, Sid?
Ay, wala.
Lapit po kasi sa camera. Kala ko magtatanong eh.
Nahihina kasi ako eh.
Ganun ba yun? All right, we're gonna close this show. I mean, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us over the last couple of hours dito in celebrating the memory of Joe Cantada rito. Isang parting shot na lang mula sa inyo lahat. Let's start with Kong Willie naman.
Para kay Joe Cantada, tama si Andy Howe. Mahal na mahal niya ako. Pero mahal na mahal din namin siya. Ito yung tatlong nandito, sigurado ako, iba yung samahan namin, iba yung malasakit namin sa isa't isa hanggang ngayon. At yun nga, mahal na mahal namin si Joe Cantada.
Salamat, Com. We'll go to Sev.
Thank you for this opportunity to talk again about Joe. It's been a while since we talked about him. Occasionally, naman in our PBA production nowadays, sometimes I'll do my impersonations, and there's always this request to do a Joe Cantada saying that Willie Marcial is the official shoe of the PBA. And the younger members of the press who respect Willie so much are wondering, why is this Sev Sarmenta teasing the commissioner of the PBA? But because of that samahan ng araw, I can do that with Willie while maintaining my utmost respect for him and what he has done for the league that he has loved so much as well. Sa akin, one of the joys of doing the PBA has been knowing the three people that are with me here today, Quinito, Andy, and Willie. Again, it's nice to be a rookie. Again, the Benjamin of the group, as I was in 1986. And it's a great opportunity to switch on that Joe Cantada voice again. Thank you very much, guys, sa AEOB.
We'll close the show with you with you actually trying to do that. Quinito, parting shot from you naman.
Well, I think we owe a lot to Joe Cantada because he paved the way. He influenced us. He set a very good example of being a true professional. And for all of that, we owe a lot to him. And, I'll cherish this. Joe Cantada
We should hear it one day. You should open it.
Hindi ko ibebenta to, although sealed pa to. But one day, bubuksan ko nito.
I'll send you 80th birthdays. 80th birthdays next year.
I'll send you a USB of this.
Yon, very good. Sige, thank you.
This is something I truly cherish. Yeah. And also, we enjoyed so much over the last 2 hours. Tayo yung kwentuhan natin dito. And I think that's also the spirit of Joe. He wanted all of us to be enjoying each other in the style of coverage that he wanted. And I thought this was a very good example of Joe Cantada's influence, the way we enjoyed ourselves today. And thank you, Noel, Sid, and Charlie for giving us this opportunity, for Willie, for Sev, and for Andy, for getting us all together here to celebrate Joe Cantada's life.
Thank you
Thanks.
for coming.
Dr. J, last sa'yo. Parting shot sa inyo, Dr. J.
Thank you very much, guys, especially all my friends there. I think the most important thing for a man is his legacy. You have a lot while you're living. Do people remember you after you have passed away? And I think that is one thing that he always hoped that he could have left to, the general public, to his friends. Yung legacy niya na he was one of the best sportscasters that ever lived in our country. And I think we owe him that. So kung yung mga hindi nyo pakilala, I hope this gave you a little lesson on the kind of guy that he was. Maybe you can find some of the old tapes and listen to some of his games. You will enjoy it.
He's been an influence to all of us, myself included dito. No, before we let you guys go, let's have a big group here, Aaron. I wanna just one question lang kay Commissioner Willie Marcial. Back to business tayo, talk shop ulit tayo. Kamusta na yung PBA and what's the latest development sa atin? Lahat kami nag-aabang din.
Ano sabi mo?
Okay na.
Happy.
Well.
Sinubukan ko lang.
Hindi. So, nasabi mo na rin yan. Makikita naman tayo, Noel. Alam mo naman mangyayari sa'yo. Biro lang. Pinipilit natin na mag-open tayo sa April. Tingnan natin. Pero tumataas nga yung mga COVID cases. So, tingnan natin. Kailangan po namin ang dasal nyo. Kung nagdasal nyo po kami nung bubble, mas kailangan po natin. At hindi lang po sa PBA, sa ating lahat. Mag-iingat po tayo. Maraming salamat, Noel.
Amen.
Thank you very much, Com. Before we close this, I'm sorry. I just want to get the thoughts of my two co-hosts dito. How big of an impact was Joe Cantada in your careers, in your lives dito? Sid, I'll start with you.
Well, look, growing up, there was a time, Joe Cantada was the PBA for me. His influence on the coverage, he really inspired me to watch. And it wasn't just the PBA, he actually covered all of those great boxing events that were shown here in the 80s. I remember yung Mike Tyson, Michael Spinks, siya yung blow-by-blow color commentary noon, and I think Hagler Hearns as well. So basta pagdating sa sports nung 80s, for me, Joe Cantada was the man. Siya yung talagang napakagaling na local na sportscaster, and he in his own little way he also helped nudge me towards the world of sports media. So I really admire Joe Cantada.
My fellow anchorman, Charlie Cuna.
Well, you have to admire everything that Joe Cantada did. The voice, the wit, the presence, yung pagkamacho niya and all of that was something we all wanted to live up to. He set such a high standard, which is actually making it really difficult for us right now, because people compare us to him. And as we see from some of the comments and all of that, maybe we still have to strive to try to reach that level. And it's an everyday struggle for all of us to try to be a Joe Cantada, but because he set that standard, we try to do our best all the time. I can only hope that somehow, we live up to some of the greatness that Joe Cantada has set for all of us, and we thank him for his influence and for all those great. But maraming wrinkles yung mga Betamax tape dati. Minsan di mo narinig ng maayos, pero once you watch those games, as was said earlier, you have to admire the way that Joe Cantada carried that coverage, and then we can only hope to try to do that and duplicate that. Hopefully soon, di ba, Com? Hopefully soon, babalik ang coverage ng PBA, because we all gotta work.
That's right.
So, thank you, Joe Cantada. Maraming salamat sa iyong legacy, and salamat din sa ating mga guests sa araw na ito for joining us on this little show of ours that we call An Eternity of Basketball. Joe Cantada lang yan.
Ito nga. And for me naman, Joe Cantada turned sports into something that Sev and I would always talk about, storytelling. Joe Cantada was for me one of the best storytellers of all time. And that influenced me entering sports, listening to Dick Ildefonso growing up. Nung narinig ko yung Joe Cantada, pwede palang ganito. And it's something that I strive for always. It's always education and entertainment. Yung tira ko sa pag-cover na sports. Joe Cantada had a big influence of that. Of course, Sev Sarmenta was my second mentor, but it's always looked up at Joe Cantada first. And thank you, Joe, for for bringing that to us dito. You've touched so many lives. You've touched our lives for sure. And guys, that's gonna do it for this very, very special and medyo emotional edition of An Eternity of Basketball for all of us, episode number 73. For our guest, special guest today, Dr. J. Andy Howe, thank you for joining us. Quinito as well. Willie Marcial, thank you for spending time with us. Alam ko napaka-busy na schedule mo. For Charlie and Sid as well. But I just want to have this show closed by the best Joe Cantada impersonator of all, Sev Sarmenta. Please close the show for us, sir.
Take us home. Take us home.
It has been an enlightening 2 hours of elucidation and discussion on the topic and the prognosis of Dr. J. Andrew H. Howe on how he has dissected the game of basketball. Quinito Henson's equally astute and incisive analysis has also been very, very enlightening. But for all intents and purposes, there is only one official shoe of the PBA. It is Willie Marcial. Good night, Porky. Good night, all of you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Salamat.
See you all next week for An Eternity of Basketball once again. Thank you.
Smokin, Joe.
That's it. It's a wrap, guys.
Thank you, guys.
See you.
Thank you.
Salamat to everybody.